I revel in Christmas. I adore that sense of glowing festivity and the coziness of the kitchen. I know Christmas is different this year, but I don't see how it could be otherwise. But for me, it makes it all the more important to make the most of every fairy light, every candle, every golden moment, and every delicious mouthful. I am the queen of kitsch Christmas clutter, but I have learnt to embrace it. This is actually only one part of my festive filing system. Now what do we have? Well, of course, a Christmas wreath, shedding sprouts. Love these. I might leave them out. My Christmas tea towels. I got them in America, but they look so beautiful, I haven't been able to bring myself to unfurl them from their box. Still, I love them like that. This used to have a Christmas liqueur in it. I can't exactly remember which one it was, but could come in handy. Not sure. The same could be said for this. It's one of my late-night online purchases, a seasonal rolling pin. But you never know. One day I might be filled with an urgent need to make reindeer-stamped pastry. I might. But what I actually am rummaging about for is this. My Christmas cookie cutters, because I'm making Linzer Augen. Linzer, because they come from Linz in Austria. Augen, eyes, because they are jam sandwich cookies with cutouts so that the jam glints through. We call them Linzer cookies. And all I have to tell you is, in its wildest dreams, a jammy dodger couldn't aspire to the melting tenderness and celestial lightness of a Linzer cookie. These Austrian Christmas cookies have a characteristic rich nuttiness. So first up, I'm grinding 100 grams of skin-toasted hazelnuts with 125 grams of caster sugar. I'm just blitzing them both together until they're fine sand. Now I add 300 grams of plain flour, just a kiss of cinnamon, a quarter of a teaspoon, and a teeny bit of salt, an eighth of a teaspoon. Next up, 200 grams of cubed unsalted butter. Then I need a large egg, plus an extra yolk, before whizzing everything together until gradually a soft dough begins to form. I divide the dough into 4 patties. Then I pop each fat patty into a storage bag, and these need to go into the fridge to let the dough rest. I've rolled out the red carpet for my Linzer cookies, or at least put down a silicone baking mat. And in fact, I'm layering up just a square of baking parchment the same size as the cookie sheet. A bit of flour. The first disc. I'm aiming to roll the dough out to about, 2 or 3 millimetres. But having said that, I'm not going to get a ruler to them. The important thing, anyway, is that they're of a uniform size, so they bake evenly in the oven. It's a 6-centimetre diameter cookie cutter. These are going to be the bottoms of the Linzer cookies. I'm trying not to leave much of a space in between them so I can get as many cookies in this first go, but I should say that this is a dream to re-roll. You know, when Michelangelo was asked how hard it was to make his David, or so the story goes, he said it wasn't hard at all. David was just there, and he just had to chisel away at all the superfluous marble. And this is my method for these cookies. I'm taking out the superfluous dough. So they are ready for the oven. And now for the slightly trickier, the top part. When I say trickier, I also mean so much more enjoyable. Flour again. It's really the same process all over again. It feels just the right thing to do, just slow down a bit and just enjoy getting myself into the Christmas spirit. There we are. And now for the fun bit. I've got my cutters. Well, this is meant to be a snowflake. It looks a bit like an exotic flower, but either will do. And a bell, obviously. Christmas bauble, that's the idea. I know it's not Christmassy exactly, but I always have to have some Linzer cookies with some hearts cut out. The oven's on at 180, and these will need about 9 to 10 minutes. The cookies are cooked, cooled, and ready to be fully Christmassified. So I'm gonna mix up the jam for the filling. Red currant is traditional, and it has such a wonderful affinity with hazelnuts. I'm using jelly because I love the tang, but I am mixing with an equal amount of seedless raspberry jam. It's a combination I adore. Right, I reckon on using about half a teaspoon of jam per cookie. And I'm just going to blob it on. That gorgeous garnet glossiness. So cheering. And now these tops get their treatment. Got some icing sugar in here. And I'm welcoming the first snowfall of the season. Now, gently, gently, I'm going to top each jam-covered biscuit with one sugar-sprinkled one. I love it so much when that wonderful gleaming red just bulges through slightly. Look at them, so beautiful. Something of a seasonal stained glass window going on. Could I be feeling any more fabulously festive? Oh, Christmas has really begun. Obviously, there are going to be only small-scale celebrations this year, but companionable coziness is all I need. I'm having an alfresco festive supper this year, but we won't even feel the cold. We have friendship, a fire, and a mood-boosting menu to keep us warm. I'm making my pomegranate fizz to welcome everyone, and it is just right with my black bread and salmon. Tuck in, enjoy it. With travel out of the question, I'm making a cook's tour this year, and it's a delicious adventure. First stop Norway for festive pork ribs with the best crackling ever. Then a stop off in Sweden for Jansson's temptation, the potato gratin of your dreams. And I'm staying Nordic with my Scandi cucumber salad and pickled red cabbage. And for pudding, a Squidgy stack of gingerbread, perfect with creme fraiche and pomegranates. And later, I have a kitchen trip to the Netherlands to look forward to as I celebrate with New Year doughnuts. While I'm always partial to a bit of preserving and pickling, it feels particularly rewarding at this time of year, an essential part of my Christmas cocooning process. Now, it's true that both the pickled red cabbage and Scandi cucumber go perfectly with the Norwegian pork ribs. But more than that, it's just so immeasurably comforting knowing I have both on standby to zhuzh up leftovers throughout the season. I start with the pickled red cabbage since it needs to be done 2 days ahead of time. I finely slice 500 grams of red cabbage. And then I sprinkle over salt. And for this amount of cabbage, I use 35 grams. Then I toss it gently to mix and leave it there for 3 hours. And then straight away, I get started on preparations for the pickling liquid. This entails finely slicing 25 grams of ginger and 2 fat cloves of garlic. I pour 200 millilitres of medium dry cider into a small pan. And on top of that, I pour 400 millilitres of raw unfiltered apple cider vinegar. Now I have a few bits and pieces to add to the pan. First of all, 25 grams of sugar, and that's 2 tablespoons. I add 2 teaspoons each of peppercorns and juniper berries. Then comes 1 teaspoon of mustard seeds and half a teaspoon of dried thyme. Last to go in the pan are the ginger and garlic cloves I've just sliced in readiness. I give everything a stir over gentle heat just to help melt the sugar, and then I bring it to a boil and let it bubble for 2 minutes. I take it off the heat and let it get cold, and as it gets cold, all those flavours will deepen and mellow. When the cabbage has had its 3 hours, put the colander in the sink and rinse the cabbage really well with cold water. And then once it's rinsed, squeeze out as much excess liquid as you can and then wrap it tenderly in a tea towel. Give a final pat down of your swaddled red cabbage and then you're ready to pack a jar with it. Now, you do need to strain the pickling liquid So I do that first into a jug because it makes it much easier to pour into the preserving jar. And then press the cabbage down with a fork or something to make sure it's all submerged. Close the jar and put it in the fridge. I'm afraid you will have to wait for 2 days before eating it, though it does last for 3 weeks. Well, it never lasts that long in my house, but it can do. My maternal grandmother, who had a huge influence on me, had an enduring love affair with all things Scandinavian, and so I was really brought up with the flavours of my Scandi cucumber salad. And I call it a salad, but actually it is the sprightliest of quick pickles. First, I slice 2 cucumbers as finely as possible. Of course, you can use a knife. I like a mandolin for this. I'm going to have to be very bossy and say you absolutely must wear what's officially called a cut-resistant glove, but I call it my Game of Thrones glove. I lightly salt the sliced cucumbers, leave them for 30 minutes, and then squeeze them well until I have fine, frilly slices, which I pack into a preserving jar, layering with dill as I go. I make this brine much as I did the one for the red cabbage, but this one's just raw cider vinegar, coriander seeds, peppercorns, a little sugar, and some leftover dill stalks. When cold, I pour this into my cucumber jar, and unlike the red cabbage, you can start eating this straight away. Now, the squeezed-out cucumber slices leave behind in the bowl the most amazing, vivid green, salty liquid. And I advise you not to throw this away because you could be making one of my mean green dirty martinis. Now, this I made by shaking together over ice 1 part dry white vermouth, 2 parts of my salty cucumber liquid, and 4 parts of gin. Obviously, you can use vodka. And all I have to say to you is skål. Red Alert, my new seasonal showstopper, is a happy hybrid and yet something all its own. I can't say that this is exactly traditional fare, but at this time of year, I always have to have something on hand to eat that's hot, sour, salty and bright. It's where my ruby noodles come in. I mean, I say they're noodles, and they are really, but I use spaghetti. And although I'm starting them off in a traditional manner, they are cooked for the most part in beetroot juice. I didn't squeeze the beetroots myself. And the intense and earthy sweetness of beetroot really calls for rambunctious seasoning and spicing. So, salt, as I promised. Lots of it. And a fair amount of chili flakes, too. And a lot of garlic. As Julia Childs said, cooking, like love, has to be entered in with abandon or not at all. But the real partner to the beetroot here is ginger, and I want a heady amount of it. I'm such a lover of ginger. My only rule is add twice as much as you think you might need. And, of course, that essential sourness. Whenever I want zing, limes are happy to provide. much full-on flavour here, and yet the whole is so sprightly and light. It's the perfect antidote for me when I've been eating my body weight, unrepentantly, I should add, in cheese. Just need to get this to a gentle bubble now. Right, and so into this pan of bubbling crimson liquid goes my yellow spaghetti. And this is the last time it'll be yellow. I'm just going to let this bubble away merrily, and once the spaghetti's cooked, it'll have absorbed that gorgeous red and spicy liquid. It's quite mesmerising and looks rather like those laces of Australian red licorice. Right, you can, of course, eat these noodles hot, but it's when they're cold that they're utterly sensational. So I'm going to let them cool in this wide bowl. While the noodles cool, I'm going to steep them in a little pre-dressing comprising some brown rice vinegar, rather deep sourness, the saltiness of soy, and the salty sourness, fusing the two, of fish sauce. And oh, that wonderful nutty gleam of toasted sesame oil. Just knowing I have a tub of these in the fridge fills me with an exuberant sense of well-being. Once the ruby noodles are cold, I add the dressing, which actually is made with the same ingredients as the pre-dressing. Then I scatter over finely sliced chives, followed by freshly chopped coriander. Oh, how I adore these Christmassy colours. For pudding, I've got a slightly new twist to a festive favourite, and I can't wait to fill the kitchen with its evocative aroma. I couldn't contemplate Christmas without gingerbread, and I hope I never have to. I mean, I can't count how many gingerbreads I've made in my life, but I've got a new one up my sleeve, and as awful as it sounds to say it, I am inordinately proud of it. I can't stop cooking it, certainly can't stop eating it, and it's everything I want a gingerbread to be. Squidgy, sticky and spicy. And you know, it is really that aromatic onslaught of spice that makes gingerbread such a seasonal imperative. I want my kitchen to smell of ginger, of cinnamon, of allspice and of cloves. Oh, and let me show you this. I use ready ground black pepper, school pepper, as a spice, and it's partly this that makes this gingerbread so divinely heady and so savagely intense. Right. All systems go. I talked about the spicing, but actually what helps in the squidgy and sticky department are prunes. I'm going to count them out. Since I need 75 grams, it's about 8 or 9 of these. 7, 8. I'm going to chop them up fairly finely, as well as giving the gingerbread body. They imbue everything with the most wonderful, plummy, raisiny, muscatty taste. Right, I'm going to convey them, of course, in a scarlet star. and then stickily transplant them to my saucepan. One of the many things that makes gingerbread so relaxing to make is that everything goes into a saucepan and you just warm it and stir it. So next I need some vegetable oil, just 150 millilitres. In you go. Now, of course, I mentioned savagely intense. That can mean only one thing. 200 grams of black treacle. Ah, I love the dark. But I love the light too. I'm adding 200 grams as well of golden syrup. And I do still want some sugar, 125 grams, dark muscovado. So treacly in itself. I like to make the ginger really emphatic in gingerbread, which it isn't always. So as well as the ground ginger, I'm going to grate in quite a lot of fresh ginger, about 30 grams, 25 grams.
Now for my seasonal spices. 2 teaspoons of ground ginger and the same of cinnamon.
The smell of Christmas.
Just 1 teaspoon of ground allspice and 1/8 of a teaspoon, no more, of ground cloves. Such beautiful colours. Now 1/4 teaspoon of salt, followed by the same amount of ready ground pepper with its husky heat. I melt everything together over very gentle heat, stirring smoothly all the time.
What I didn't tell you is that this gingerbread is vegan. In fact, it is officially my luscious vegan gingerbread. And, well, none of my friends who's coming over is vegan, so I don't need it to be vegan. I certainly need it to be this gingerbread. So, off the heat with it now. So into this warm pan goes 250 mils of oat milk. And along with the prunes, this will help everything stick so softly and sweetly together. So flour, quite a lot, 300 grams. That's plain flour. Stir it in. Let it dissolve into the batter in its own time. Actually, I can feel myself unwinding. So before this beautiful brown batter goes in the oven, I've got a magic potion to make. Into my Christmas cup goes 1 teaspoon of bicarb and 2 tablespoons of warm water. And now 2 teaspoons of cider vinegar. Love that. It's the simple things. This will make the gingerbread rise. I've got a 23 centimetre square tin that I've lined with baking parchment. You do need some overhang so that when this is baked, you can just lift the gingerbread out. So, oh, beautiful. I've got the oven on at 170, but if you're using a fan, you'll need it to be 150. And then after 55 minutes, it'll be cooked.
When you're happy with it, leave it to cool in its tin, but it's best left for a day.
If you touch the surface gently, you'll feel a bit of a bounce. No point using a cake tester, because the whole point is that it's so damp and squidgy.
I also have to get my no-knead black bread underway a day ahead. And while the inspiration certainly comes from Eastern Europe, many of the ingredients I add to it are hardly echt. The taste is gloriously convincing, though. I start off with 300 grams of strong white bread flour, followed by the same again of dark rye flour. Then I need 1 1/4 teaspoons of salt, just 1/4 teaspoon of fast-action dried yeast, 4 tablespoons of cocoa to bring its bitter edge, then 4 teaspoons each of fennel seeds, caraway seeds, and yes, Nigella seeds. Don't panic, but I add a teaspoon of something called activated charcoal. It just makes the darkness of the bread even more intense and is entirely optional. It's just as gorgeous without it. Now for the wet ingredients, which consist of most of a bottle of dark stout and 2 tablespoons each of dark muscovado sugar, extra virgin olive oil, and gleaming black treacle. I whisk in the white of an egg, essential for getting the texture of this loaf right, saving the yolk for egg wash later. For now, I just stir the wet and dry ingredients together till I can no longer see the flour and I have a dense, sticky mixture. All it needs from me is to cover it and leave it to proof for about 16 hours, or until it's really risen in volume with a wonderfully spongy surface. I now scrape this into a lined and greased 2-pound loaf tin, and I smooth the top, then cover it with a tea towel and leave it to rise for a further 2 hours. Then I lightly brush the top with my reserved yolk, which I've whisked with a little water, and sprinkle over, yes again, Nigella seeds, and bake for 50 minutes in a 200 Celsius oven or 180 with the fan on. And while I know this is for dinner, the minute it's cold, I have to have a slice of this dense dark bread with silky smoked salmon.
I am a resolutely indoorsy person. I don't deny it. I mean, my idea of absolute heaven is hunkering down and feeling cosy at home. But at this time of year, there is something about having a walk in the frosty air that is just magical and invigorating. And I know that I'll still have that cheek-tingling glow when I'm back in the kitchen pottering happily. I made a kitchen trip to Austria with my Linzer cookies, and now I am setting off to Scandinavia with my Norwegian pork ribs. And this way of cooking it not only makes for the most succulent pork you could ever eat, it also creates crackling that is just in another dimension. So it's prepared as they do in Norway. The rind is scored in slightly chunky squares, whereas I associate crackling here with those smaller diamond shapes. but it's on the underside that it gets really interesting. I asked the butcher to pretend to be Norwegian and cut through the bones in 2 places. And these are channels for my spicing and seasoning. They also make it very much easier to carve, and that's never a strong point of mine. I'm going to start off with garlic, quite a lot. Salt, ditto. Meat always needs more salting than you'd think. And there's a lot of meat there. Juniper berries. These really have the flavour of gin, but there's something as well quite piney about their flavour, which feels entirely seasonal. And dill, the herb of Scandinavia, and I think a bit underrated here. It's got a lemoniness and a freshness, but also a gentle anise flavour that really wins around people who hate licorice or anything in the aniseed arena. I'm using the stalks for the paste. I'm going to go gently at first so the juniper berries don't just jump out of the mortar. You can, of course, use a stick blender to make this, but I love using a pestle and mortar. Not only does it make the kitchen smell like a Nordic spa, but it's an excellent way of absorbing and getting rid of any seasonal stress. And now I'm going to start pummeling, even if it does make everything in the kitchen shake and tremble. When I shut my eyes, I really am in the snow-frosted, tree-covered mountains. And now I shall anoint the pork with this fabulous aromatic paste. So half in one channel, the other half, as you might imagine, in the other one. Just going to press it in gently. It has such concentrated flavour. These are the leaves left over from the stalks in the paste. I'm going to tuck these in. I love their feathery beauty. Just a little bit more salt. And the sides. I mean, this looks so fabulously festive, and I haven't even cooked it yet. Got a couple of onions sliced here. So let's get this over on the onions. Rind side up, obviously. Pour in a little bit of water from a recently boiled kettle, just to cover the base of the pan. And now I'm going to do something that runs counter to absolutely everything that I previously thought about getting the crispest crackling imaginable. I'm going to cover it. You'd think that if you covered the pork with the water in the tin, it would make the skin soft. But actually, it is that seems to make it so shatteringly crunchy later. It doesn't stay covered the whole time, but for the first 45 minutes of its cooking, it's in a hot oven at 220 with that foil lid firmly on. To go with the Norwegian pork ribs, I'm not straying that far. I'm definitely staying Scandi, and I'm serving something that no Swedish Christmas would be complete without. It's called Jansson's Temptation, or in Swedish, Jansson's Frestelse, although most of them tend just to refer to it as Jansson's. We, however, at home just call it chip gratin.
I've already got a bit ahead of myself and peeled just under 1.25 kilos of potatoes and cut them into skinny fries, then divided them roughly into 3 piles. So I put the first pile of potatoes into the bottom of a buttered gratin dish of about 1.5 litres capacity. I sprinkle salt over the potatoes and then give a really generous grinding of pepper. Next comes onions, and I've cooked 2 large onions in butter very gently until they're really soft. And then dollop 1/2 over the potatoes, and I try and spread them out a bit, but I don't worry about being too precise about this. Next come what the Swedes call anchovies, but they're not anchovies. They're sweet spice pickled sprats, and I just add them all over the onions and potatoes. So now it's the same dance again. The second pile of potatoes goes into the dish. Then I sprinkle with salt again and give another good grinding of pepper. Over this layer of seasoned potatoes go the remaining onions. Now I add the contents of a second can of the sweet spice sprats. I now add the final pile of potatoes. I mix together 300 ml of double cream and 300 ml of full-fat milk and pour this as gently as I can over the gratin dish. The mother of a Swedish friend of mine refers to this as the light version because I don't use all double cream. The potatoes won't be completely submerged in the milk and cream, but I press down on them a bit with a fork just to give them a light coating. Next, breadcrumbs, and I always keep a stash of them in the freezer, and I'm happy to sprinkle them over still frozen. Finally, I blob over some soft unsalted butter. I put the filled gratin dish into a hot oven, 200 degrees Celsius or 180 if you're using a fan, for about 50 minutes to an hour. When it's cooked, the potatoes underneath will be soft and the ones on top burnished and golden brown. Everything's set. I've got a bench for each household, and there are lights to be lit. I want the garden to be an enchanted space, all soft light and cosy twinkliness. I mean, we all need a respite from a year of too much reality. And of course, the food's there to offer comfort and cheer as well. And talking of which, I have a bit of last-minute fiddle-faddling to do, but nothing to ruffle me. For the black bread, I need to slice it and cover each piece with a ribbon of smoked salmon. And then I'll give a squeeze of lemon. And instead of grinding pepper over, I'm going to grate over a bit of fresh horseradish. And then sprinkle over some chopped fresh dill. The Norwegian pork rib needs a final short blast in the oven with the heat turned up, just to make sure that crackling is incredibly crunchy. And then I can carve it into juicy slabs, all ready for serving. And I love the way the crackling looks like glistening roof tiles on top of each slab of pork. The Jansson's is ready, and I want to take it out of the oven just to sit for a few minutes because it tastes so much better when it's not piping hot. And now for pudding. I've got to lift the gingerbread out of its tin and cut it into squares to be piled up on a plate, ready to be extra specially Christmassified. But right now, I've got a drink to make. I need to squeeze pomegranates and limes for my pomegranate fizz. And the fizz is supplied by sparkling muscat. You can use something like Asti Spumante, And for each bottle, I need 100 millilitres of freshly squeezed pomegranate juice and 100 millilitres of freshly squeezed lime juice.
Looks amazing. The bread is the star.
Now it's just a question of plating up on my old Christmas china.
Very good. Could eat this literally all day long.
Really delicious.
It wouldn't be a party without pudding, and my glowing tower of gingerbread is a fitting finale to the festivities.
Happy Christmas!
There's one more stop I need to make on my travels.
I know that there can't be the usual New Year's Eve parties this year, but there are other ways to celebrate. And I'm going Dutch, by which I mean I'm seeing in the New Year's they do in the Netherlands with donuts. And right now, I can't think of a better way to usher in what we all certainly hope will be a sweeter New Year.
I'm making not one, but two types of Dutch donuts. First up, oliebollen. And I'm just warming 250 mils of full-fat milk with 30 grams of soft unsalted butter, teaspoon of vanilla extract, followed by the finely grated zest of a lemon and a good speckling of nutmeg.
Just going to set down my lemony, buttery, nutmeggy milk for a moment and get on with the dry ingredients for the oliebollen. There aren't very many and it's very simple. 250 grams of plain flour, first of all. And just 2 tablespoons, or 25 grams, of caster sugar. A pinch of salt. And 2.5 teaspoons of fast-action yeast. Let's give that a little mix. Don't want to put you off, but oliebollen actually means literally oil balls. But I can promise you these are anything but greasy. They're so crisp on the outside and tender and light and bouncy on the inside. Can't wait. Before I add the jug of wet ingredients to my bowl of dry ingredients, I'm going to add an egg. I don't need to get air in here. I just want to make the egg combine with the fragrant milk. All right. It's really only a matter of seconds until this turns into a dough. And that's it. The dough is done. Well, I've done my part. Now the yeast has to get working. So I've got a dampened tea towel to cover it with, and I'll leave it to rise, and by the time it's ready, it will have puffed up voluminously and the surface will be covered with a mass of large bubbles.
And now for the Oliebollen's partner in crime, apple flappen, which are in fact a kind of very special yeasted fritter. I need 75 grams of plain flour, 25 grams of corn flour, and 1/4 of a teaspoon of fast-action yeast. Into a jug containing 100 ml of milk, warmed with 1 tablespoon of butter, I whisk in an egg, and then I whisk the contents into the dry ingredients, and when smooth, I cover with a damp tea towel and leave both bowls of batter to prove for about 1 hour and 1/4.
Ah, my Oliebollen dough is so beautifully bubbly, so it's obviously excited about getting turned into doughnuts. And who can blame it? Ah, I love the cruel deflating of the dough. And what you need to do is dip whatever implements you're using into a little cold oil. And this means the dough won't stick to the spoons. And I'm just going to ease this into the oil. It's at 180. Sometimes they sink right down into the depths. You think they're never going to come up, and then they do. They bounce back. Love a bit of deep frying. That is lovely. They're wonderfully light. By the time they're a deep golden brown, they're ready. Deep-fried food speaks so eloquently in the noise it makes. So the rustle then, and now a clatter as they hit the plate. Well, I've got enough Oliebollen for now, and I am desperate to get started on my apple flappen. For each apple, you need a tablespoon of caster sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/2 teaspoon of corn flour. Just going to give this a little mix. An apple waiting for me.
It's a Cox's orange pippin, which needs to be peeled, cored, and sliced into rings about 1/2 centimetre thick. I turn these in the cinnamon sugar, and then I dunk them in the soft batter.
Just want them to be completely covered. The oil is still at 180. The corn flour in the apple flappen batter makes the crunch so crisp and the batter so light. They're like tempura doughnuts. So now again, the ceremonial lifting of the basket. For maximum fluffiness and crispness with it, you really have to eat these just as soon as you can without burning your mouth. But first, they need to be dusted with icing sugar. Now the apple flappen. I'm doing Season's Greetings by Donut this year. This is to say Merry Christmas, and this, Happy New Year.